as you say, an energy battery. It's a new way to think about storing capital. And
Yeah.
of course, it's going to have vast implications across the spectrum. It'll be hard to figure out exactly what those are, but I think probably new ways of thinking about making political choices will be part of it.
Welcome to the Next Level Income Show, where it's our goal to take your income, your investments, and your life to the next level. I'm your host, Chris Larson. If you haven't yet, get a copy of our book for free at our website, nextlevelincome.com. That's www.nextlevelincome.com. Just click on the book link, and I'll even send you a copy if you put your address in. On today's show, we're joined by Jim Pinkerton to discuss his new book. It's called Directional Investing and how you can take advantage of the red and blue rumble during this election year. Jim worked in the domestic policy office at the White House under Presidents Reagan and George H.W. Bush in their 1988, 84, 88, and 1992 presidential campaigns. He also served as an advisor to Mike Huckabee during 2008 during his presidential campaign. And for 20 years, from 1996 to 2016, he was a contributor to the Fox News channel, where some of you may have even seen him on TV. That's how I know him, as a matter of fact. He also wrote a twice-a-week column for Newsday from 1993 to 2007, covered everything from presidential elections to the Iraq War. Jim also regularly writes for Breitbart, the American Conservative, and has written for publications ranging from the Wall Street Journal and New York Times to the Huffington Post, the Washington Examiner, the Guardian, and even the Jerusalem Post. Today, he's going to join us on the Next Level Income Show to talk about his new book and how you can take advantage as an investor of some of these trends in our divided country. Jim, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
Yeah, no, it's a pleasure. As we were discussing before the show, I've enjoyed seeing you over the years on TV, and we used to be practically neighbors before my wife and I moved to Asheville, North Carolina. And yeah, now we have you join the audience here virtually. Before we dive into your new book and how investors can take advantage of some of the things that you share in there, Jim, share a little bit more about your background.
Well, way back when I worked in the Reagan and Bush 41 policy offices, and then after that, starting in 1996, I spent 20 years at Fox News, and along the way I worked in other campaigns and various think tanks and so on. So if you name something of Beltway nature, I've done it at one time or another.
Yeah, and I followed you for years on on Fox and some of the stuff that you've read. If the audience hasn't seen you, we'll share a little bit more with your history and your background. Tell us about your new book, Jim, and why you decided to write it.
Well, the new book is called The Secret of Directional Investing: Making Money Amidst the Red-Blue Rumble. And the argument of the book is that starting with that basic investment wisdom, the trend is your friend. And then we all know that. Then within that, the trends can be divided into two categories: those trends that can be spotted, just observed passively, and those trends that can be shaped, taken actively. And so, again, I thought about this mostly because, again, I've just been watching things happen, and I started to realize that when their big departures happen, whether it's the tech boom or the rocket boom or Elon Musk and all this, you're seeing hundreds of billions of dollars, or trillions of dollars move around. And in many ways, the capital flows are larger and even somewhat independent of the federal government. I mean, the Politico had a headline the other last month saying, war on cancer is going to fail because the NIH budget has been cut by $1 billion or so. I mean, the National Institutes of Health is a agency with a $50 billion budget, and it's had a huge surge over the years, and now it's sort of leveled off. And so they're saying, well, gosh, we'll never cure cancer now. Well, we haven't been curing cancer so far, and part of that is the Food and Drug Administration has cut new approvals of drugs in the last 6 decades, by 2/3. And so if you're worried about cancer, and we all should be, why not think about the FDA, not about what the NIH budget is? If you start to take apart the NIH, you realize how much of the money now is going on woke this and woke that and so on. So it's not even clear that they're focused on cancer anymore, as opposed to some kind of crazed DEI plan. So start to think in a different way about where capital could come from. And that's got thinking about the book. And so the book, for example, starts with, as a case study, Nevada. in 1931, Nevada had more tumbleweeds than people, and the population of Las Vegas was 5,000. And an acre of land on what was then called West Highway 15 was $75. Okay. Then something changed in 1931, was legalizing gambling. Legalizing gambling is not everybody's cup of tea. I fully grasp that. But for Nevadans, it was what they wanted to do. And since then, the population of the Las Vegas metro is now 2.2 million. And an acre of land on US 15, now called the Strip, is $30 million. So there's an amazing economic there, called freedom, called entrepreneurship, called investment capital pouring in. And that just that's a thing to learn about for other states as they not only seek to spot trends, but actually shape trends. And so, but we can go back to just the spotting trends if we want to. It's a trend to spot. And the subtitle of the book is The Red Blue Rumble. The polarization of this country deeply worrisome to pundits. Okay, fine. You're worried about polarization. That's nice. However, investors should recognize delta when they see one. They should recognize an arbitrage opportunity when they see one. They should any sort of major punctuation of a situation gives you huge volatility, huge VIX, all the things you want in investment. The question is to get in front of them, to see them. And so, for example, if you observe that Walt Disney is gone woke and can't produce a non-woke movie and has even destroyed the $5 billion Star Wars franchise, then you start, well, maybe the stock isn't so good. And in fact, it's down 45% in the last 3 years. 45, Bob Iger is supposed to be the big hero, and he's came back, stayed woke, and now he's tanked the company.
Yeah. Let's just pause there for 1 second. So I know most of the audience gets that, and what I would say is you have a company like Disney, did a great job of producing entertainment, children's shows, movies, Star Wars franchise. And now they've basically stopped focusing on their core competencies and focused on something that's outside of that, diversity, equity, inclusion, and saying, well, wait a minute, this is more important than the thing that we've been focusing on that's been successful in the past. Is that a fair way to describe that?
It is. And plenty of companies just sort of lose their way. And, the investors are telling them, the analysts are telling them, shape up, do better. And they just sort of can't help themselves. I mean, it's just, corporate history is full of examples of, Ford Motor Company in the 1920s just couldn't get his head around, we want to move from cars, Model Ts to new cars and different colors and so on. And General Motors jumped in and did that. So there's tons of examples. On the other hand, so that a lot of the inspiration for the book comes from Peter Lynch's, famous book from the 80s, One Up on Wall Street. He said, listen, just start by observing. If your friends, female friends are all saying legs, pantyhose is good, chances are it's a good stock. If the lines at Dunkin' Donuts are long, chances are Dunkin' Donuts. Now Dunkin' is a pretty good stock. And so to take another example of a trend to watch, for 30 years now, we've been hearing about green energy and how, Al Gore and transition and all solar and all this and everything.
I fell for that back in the late 90s, early 2000s.
It was an amazing wave of propaganda. And I'm not even going to dispute the science. I'm just saying that, Germany is a cautionary tale in what happens when you try and run your industrial economy with windmills and solar. And so it is not, despite the best efforts of the Biden administration to achieve some version of the Green New Deal, oil production is up, not as much as it could be, but it's up some. And meanwhile, a trend to watch is Exxon, the epitome of an oil company, has tripled in the same last 3 years. I mean, it's just, so Disney is down 45%, Exxon has tripled. It's not just that, red companies go up and blue companies go down. It's more complicated than that. I mean, look at NVIDIA, look at Apple, look at Microsoft. There's just, the tech boom is really strong too. But the main thing here is to just see, blue states that have deep tech industries are flourishing. California and Washington, most obviously.
Yep.
To Massachusetts. blue states that don't have that, like Illinois, are tanking. I saw an article that said that office buildings in Chicago are selling at a 99% discount. I mean, you could, if you know how to short a REIT, you can certainly, play in that game. And I actually have a little aside in there. The George Soros prosecutors have been so devastating to cities that given Soros's track record of shorting the pound and so on, you have to wonder, is there some chance this whole Soros prosecuting thing has been a giant short on urban estate across the country? I mean, it gets to buy San Francisco for a song compared to what it used to cost, and then say, okay, we liquidated all the old values. Now we bought these things at the bottom. Now we'll fix the crime issue, and San Francisco will achieve its destiny, which, as science fiction fans know, San Francisco is the future headquarters of Starfleet Command. I mean, what could be cooler than that, right? So, now you got a good business on your hand, right? Now, you're becoming, the Brooklyn shipyards of the future on that, and it's from San Francisco. Why not?
Yeah. So we hit a lot of things there, Jim, in that last commentary. So just to kind of back up and highlight some of those points. So, one of the things that we do with our real estate business is we look very simply. I always love to look at the U-Haul report every year. You just say, hey, where are people moving? And it's very simple to see where the tide is shifting, right? Like you were mentioning, people are moving out of Illinois. They're moving to places like Florida, like Texas, like the Southeast that have better climates. They have lower taxes. They have lower burdens. They also have better economic climates for a lot of the same reasons, because a lot of these states, which happen to be red states by and large, are pro-business, right? So they allow that. So that's one of the, and I'd love for you to kind of get your thoughts on any of these things. So those are easy trends to watch. You mentioned the Green New Deal, right? And look, I had solar panels on our last house that we sold before we moved into our new house. The state said, hey, we're going to subsidize it, Chris. We're going to pay you to put solar panels up there. It's making 15% a year on that choice. Like that's pretty good. Locked in 15% rate of return. But as you mentioned, some people may not be familiar with it, but Germany, they're shutting down their nuclear power plants. They're shutting down their coal power plants. They're going to solar and wind. And what happened is now they have rolling blackouts. They've had to reopen some of these coal power plants. And they're even looking at nuclear again. We just had an expert in the nuclear sector come on the show and talk about that trend. So that's a trend that's easy to predict, as you mentioned, Jim. If you decrease the supply of something and the demand is increasing, namely energy, well, what's going to happen to the price? You mentioned Exxon. If you're able to produce that. Any thoughts on that? I know we're seeing AI and just the tremendous draw on the electrical system with AI, in addition to EVs. And I thought it was funny last year that California Governor Gavin Newsom said, hey, we're going to be all EVs in this country by, was it 2030 or 2035? And then the following month or the following week, they said, oh, you can't charge your EVs because we have a rolling blackout.
And they asked Secretary Buttigieg yesterday on TV how many electric vehicle charging stations is the government built, and he said 7.
7. Yeah, 7. How many billions of dollars did they spend for this?
Exactly. It's nuts. However, I mean, there's an important point here.
Yeah.
And that's, population is flowing to the Southeast and Florida, just as you said, and AI is driving on top of that. There was an article in the Journal last week said Georgia Power says it's increasing its estimate of its future electricity needs because of data centers by 16 times more power they think they're going to need than they thought they were going to need.
16 times.
16 times. More than expected growth. And there was electricity growth in America has been flat for the last 20 years because of efficiency. But now the AI thing is so strong. And I mean, a chat GPT search uses 60 times more energy than a Google search.
Interesting.
Just think about it. Look at your phone when you're doing it, and you see all that stuff crawling around there. You see that's that much more energy going on. So yes, there's an unbelievable energy hog here, and I have a chapter in the book on the future alliance, and it's improbable, but I think it's going to happen between AI and energy producers, and it's going to be based on carbon fuels and then carbon capture. It is, carbon is the fourth most prevalent element in the universe. It is the key of life. It is most valuable, probably, element you can think of. And it is not a poison if it's harmful in the atmosphere, where way, way less than 1% of the carbon on the Earth's surface is in the atmosphere. Most of it is in trees and plants and the oceans. So if it's just a question of rejiggering it a little bit, carbon capture wise, then you've got an obvious plan there for a new industry of carbon capture, whether you're turning into plastics or carbon nanotubes or wood or just landfill, anything you want. That is a future good business. And as you touched on, if the government wants to, it make something that otherwise might not make sense or a pretty good investment. It's a good idea for you to put solar panels on your house because the government is paying you to do it. And that may be wrong from an ideological point of view, but from an investment point of view, you're agnostic. You just say, look, take the money. Yeah. And so if the government is determined to tilt in things toward carbon neutrality or net zero or something, I suspect the good bet down the road, and the other thing is already showing it, is invest in carbon fuels linked to carbon capture. And now I'll have two industries, one of carbon extraction and the other one of carbon addition, as we make bigger trees and make new 3D printed houses out of this stuff and so on. But meanwhile, it's important to realize, even as the population leaves, for example, Massachusetts, the value of real estate in Massachusetts is increasing.
And you made a good point. Massachusetts is a huge hub. I spent almost 20 years in the biomedical industry, and it's a massive tech center for biomed, for biotech, for all these things coming out of Massachusetts. So tell us a little bit more about that, Jim. Because
Robert Solow won a Nobel Prize. He said, capital is twice as valuable as labor, and innovation is twice as valuable as capital. So you show me a hub of innovation, like MIT, for example, to a lesser extent Harvard, you're going to get money coming out of there. In the book, I have an example of, two guys said, from MIT, we can use gamma waves to treat Alzheimer's, ALS, ischemic strokes, and so on. They immediately got $73 million. Okay. You can't really touch on an investment level two guys sitting in an office saying, okay, all of a sudden some nice venture capital guy gives me 73 million bucks. That's a pretty good world. Now, again, it remains to be seen whether this will work or not, but the track record of the biotech industry in Massachusetts is strong enough that they have a thriving venture capital community. And among other things, it supports the kind of wealth creation such that Hanscom Field, which is the private airport near Boston, is quadruple its traffic right now. It's planning on building 27 new hangars, 27 new hangars, because even if most people leave Massachusetts, the ones who are staying are buying up Martha's Vineyard. I mean, there's the 3 acres.
Obama's live right down the road, right?
Yeah, exactly. And 3 acres on the shore. And this is in the journal too, sold for $100 million. 3 acres. Yeah. So it's from a money making point of view, it's probably hard to beat Massachusetts real estate. Again, believe the rich, and if you think the average rich person who lives in Massachusetts is sorry to see the bulk of the population go, you're wrong, and they're delighted. That's what green NIMBYism is all about, right? Just get the people out of it, let them all go to Florida or Georgia or someplace. I will stay here, my acres of land, and not be worried about traffic and pollution and whatever else. And again, as an investor, again, this is the essence of the book. The trend is your friend. So if you see a trend, whether it's biotech in Massachusetts or AI, and in 2014, California had the 7th largest economy in the world. Okay, that's the standard factoid. 10 years later, especially on the right, we've been reading about, homelessness and crime and, high taxes and everything, how terrible California is. And then you wake up and you realize that if California was 7th in 2014, it's now 5th.
Amazing.
Going up.
Yeah.
The standard of living, the average Californian, I'm sure, has declined.
Yeah.
The tech people, NVIDIA, Apple, they don't care, right? They don't care. And so all they know is that, Apple is is a $3 trillion company now, and NVIDIA is a $2 trillion company. So the
incredible.
value of tech has so ballooned the California economy that, it's again, from an investment point of view, it's hard to get better than the Magnificent Seven, right?
Absolutely. And to make a point, Jim, something that we've seen over the past couple of decades, like my wife and I, we moved out of the DC area, moved to Asheville, North Carolina, raise a family, lower cost of living, better quality of life. We have the capacity to basically do the same career that we were doing up in DC, which it wasn't that way 20 or 30 years ago like it is today. So one of the stories I like to tell, we bought a property in the Atlanta area from an owner, and he liked to essentially subsidize his residents. So his residents that couldn't afford rent, he'd charge them lower rent. So when we bought the property, we were able to buy it at a lower price because his NOI wasn't as high because he had low rents. So we were able to increase those rents. Now, some people would say, well, that's not fair, Chris. Like those people were getting lower rents. But I'd argue that the increase that we were able to achieve in terms of value provided us the opportunity in the capital that we could direct that capital to the same endeavors that this gentleman was doing. And my point, Jim, that I'd like to get your thoughts on, we can achieve the same ends with respect to our ideology, but be agnostic on capital. So you may say, hey, I don't really like California or the way they're doing things out there, but that doesn't mean you can't take advantage of the trends that are going on in California. What do you think? Are you a high-income business owner or professional earning $200,000-$300,000 or even more a year, but still feel like you're living paycheck to paycheck? Are you comfortable working until you're 65 or 70 to retire? Or do you want to achieve financial independence and live life on your own terms? You could join myself and Matt Four and learn how we both became financially independent in our early 30s. We will teach you how to make, keep, and grow your money, teaching you strategies to maximize your earnings, keep your income that you've earned through tax strategy and legal structures, and ultimately teach you how to grow it by determining your personal investing strategy, as well as teach you how to analyze investments so you can grow your passive income to the point to live life on your own terms. Our coaching clients reliably do this in 7 years or less. To learn more, check out our coaching program at nextlevelincome.com/coaching. That's nextlevelincome.com/coaching.
Well, I mean, when Sam Altman of OpenAI says, I want 7 trillion, not billion, trillion, to build new chips, who can say he's not going to get it, right? I mean, just given the value of AI over the next 100 years, capital investment of 7 trillion in chip making starts to look, well, that's obvious. Of course, that's only the beginning. And just to go ahead further, let's think about the future value of Elon Musk saying that the human race will be multiplanetary, right? Or if Jeff Bezos,
the value of real estate on Mars, like who's buying real estate on Mars?
And the value of real estate on Mars, and also what's implicit in the amount of rocket traffic and everything else between here and Mars if people are living up there, right? And Jeff Bezos says there'll be trillions of people living in outer space. Pull out your calculator and start, all right, trillions of people in outer space. What's the value of getting in the logistics business and the Amazon delivery business for all those people? Our heads aren't big enough to have that many zeros in them.
It's massive,
if we even begin to get right the future trend on space, we'll all be doing really, really well. And meanwhile, there's very micro things to be done in the meantime. For example, Elon Musk in Texas has been having trouble with the Fish and Wildlife Service. Okay, the Fish and Wildlife Service run by left-wing Greens. They hate Musk, of course, and so they're saying your rocket.
Which is funny. They used to love him, right? They used to love him a few years ago before he bought X or Twitter.
He changed. They changed. So the Fish and Wildlife Service is now saying your rocket launchers are interfering with the turtles and the fish and stuff. And look, who can say that under some future administration, the Fish and Wildlife Service wouldn't just shut it down, right? Say you do this. And so there's a value in Texas. If Texas were to say, in the same way Nevada was protecting the right to gamble, if Texas were to take it to itself, we are going to guarantee that no Fish and Wildlife Service inspector is going to bother Mr. Musk and his rocket launches, how much more SpaceX be worth, and how much more confident would investors be that SpaceX is going to stay in Texas as opposed to move to, somewhere out Florida or Panama or somewhere else on the equator. So there's a lot of, on the trends shaping business, there's a lot of things states could be doing. For example, North Carolina, Georgia, you pick a state. In this day and age, given the fact that if you're looking ahead to the election, half the country is going to be furious at whoever wins, right? Whoever wins, half the country is going to say this: the guy in the White House is atrocious, he's terrible, whatever, whether it's Biden or Trump, or whoever. Anyway, so that at that point, governors, and they're already doing this, can say, let's take matters in our own hands. Let's take more authority. The federal government is discredited, is run by that idiot in Washington. So we are going to have more power here, including over the FDA. I think that's the real future. In the same way that states have now sort of emancipated themselves from federal rules on education and guns and a lot of these, and abortion, a lot of these issues, a state could say, listen, we want to get out from under the FDA. And at that point, the $5 trillion with a T dollars that the country spends on healthcare every year starts to tilt in different directions.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's a lot of money. So Jim, for me, I'm a fan. Hey, let the states make their own choices, pull back on the federal government, and do these things. And it's as the states get larger, it's easier to see these trends and follow these things like you're talking about. A couple things I wanted to get your thoughts on, and that popped into my head. I took some notes here. We've talked about Bitcoin on this show. Some people see Bitcoin essentially as like an energy battery. Do you have any thoughts, or is there any portion of the book? For the record, the book comes out the day we're recording this, so you'll be able to get this when you hear this. I hadn't had a chance to read it before we recorded here today, Jim. But any thoughts on Bitcoin and how that can help the flow of energy?
There's a little section on crypto in there. I mean, it's clearly something coming, and it is. I have this discussion of the crypto theorist and activist Vitaly Buterin, who is developing his own political science. It's a lot of it voting with your money and stuff. You think there should be a bridge, put in the bridge and invest in it, direct your investment toward the bridge. I mean, he's got 5 million Twitter followers, and I'm not saying he's going to win. I'm not saying he's right. I'm saying he's already getting his chance to experiment. Okay. And experimenting is an investment option, right? These guys are trying something different over there. Let's throw some money and see what happens. That's just a good portfolio thing. So yeah, crypto is, as a rival to central bank currencies, and so on. It's the philosopher Kant, the actual proves the possible, and the fact that there's trillions of dollars in crypto and it survives Sam Bankman-Fried and so on, just proves that it's not going to be a new way to think about, as you say, an energy battery. It's a new way to think about storing capital. And of course, it's going to have vast implications across the spectrum. It'll be hard to figure out exactly what those are, but I think probably new ways of thinking about making political choices will be part of it.
Yeah, no, and it's already like, Trump was just talking about it here last week. It's, Rubio. I'm sorry, not Rubio, but the governor of Florida was just talking about it as well. So yeah, it's becoming a big political issue. Look, frankly, I want to end on a positive note, Jim. I'm an optimist when it comes to everything. I think that entrepreneurs, that capitalists will come up with solutions to save the world and move things. I know that some people think, oh, capitalists, they just care about money. They're going to destroy the environment, all those things. I see what we have done in this country. I see, the fact that carbon emissions have come down. We've put a lot of capital towards things that are not only enhancing the environment, but also enhancing, returns and capital and the quality of life in this country. And one of the statistics that I love is that the number one thing that determines whether a person or a country cares about the environment is their wealth. So I think that we should focus on in this country how to free up capital, how to pull down barriers so entrepreneurs can solve these problems. Thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, you're talking the language of Abraham Maslow and his famous psychological pyramid from 1943, where as you move up your income from food and shelter toward ideology and self-actualization. There's plenty of nutty ideologies and plenty of nutty self-actualizations. That's freedom, right? Yep. Freedom says you climb your pyramid, I climb mine. And as you suggest, the history of the last 100 years, pulling people out of poverty, building things, cleaning up the look. No rich person wants arsenic in the air, right? So they're just eager to see arsenic and obvious toxins like SO2 get into the atmosphere. It is harder to convince them that CO2 is that bad, which is why they're having this trouble. But nonetheless, clearly, this is a better country with an per capita GDP of $50,000 or whatever it is than it was at 500. I mean, it's sort of obvious.
Yeah.
And if, I guess the thing that I would point out is the woke, the blue states, are not socialist. Woke, they're anti-police and stuff, but you can't look at California or Massachusetts and not notice that they are eagerly capitalistic. They, the people who are running the stock portfolios for, the tech companies and the biotech companies are just as eager to make money and get rich or richer than anybody. And so it is, but it's just, they are approaching it in a different way, that's for sure. And actually, that's sort of interesting. It just to think to yourself, the people who created OpenAI, the company is literally headquartered in San Francisco. And so it is sort of instructive to us to think there are people who literally think San Francisco is the best place to live, and I really enjoy it here. And now I'm going to build this marvelous AI program, and it's again, not everybody thinks like us, right? Not everybody likes blue shirts. I mean, there's just people are different, and out of that comes enormous investment opportunities, including in the arbitrage. You go to California for your green energy credit and your abortion. You go to Florida for your tax cut and there's lots of ways to think about this that take advantage of freedom and let everybody make it into a win-win.
I love that. Let everybody make it into a win-win. Jim, I just bought a copy of your book as soon as it was released here. What is the best place for our audience to get a copy of your book to learn more about you? And
they tell me Amazon. Amazon's algorithm rules. So
absolutely. Yeah. The Secret of Directional Investing, Making Money Amidst the Red Blue Rumble. We're going to certainly have a link in the show notes to that. Jim, you want to have any thoughts on the election or what's going to happen here come November?
The only thing I guarantee is how angry half the country will be.
Half the country's not going to be happy. That's a good, I'll take that bet.
It is, not so much Trump himself, conservatives around Trump, the Heritage Foundation and so on, have all been saying that if Trump or the next Republican who wins, he will use our control of the Food and Drug Administration to ban the abortion pill mifepristone. Okay, it's, again, and mifepristone, because liberals like it, it was never tested by the FDA. They just approved it. And we will yank it. Now, if that happens, if Trump wins and they do that, Governor Murphy of New Jersey, Democrat, and others have said, we will ignore this rule. And New Jersey, because it's sort of a pharma state, has the capacity to make it itself. They will make it in New Jersey, and look at in a crazy way. If they'll make New Jersey an abortion mecca, and you come here and get the abortion pill, and that will set a precedent where if New Jersey can flout the FDA, by Idaho or South Carolina or so on, and I think you'll see that Idaho has passed a law that says no state employee will have any cooperation, context, communication, anything with the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms. Okay, it's sort of what you'd expect. a very pro-gun state like Idaho to say we will not allow that. This law was passed in 2021. It hasn't really been tested in court, but to the extent that Idaho could make it itself into an enterprise zone for guns, that has full implications for gun ownership and tourism and whatever else might be. And so I think you'll see, whether it's on the left in New Jersey or the right in Idaho or some other state altogether, some entrepreneur state says, why can't we be to innovation what Nevada was to gambling? I think you'll see a lot of that coming just because the federal government just being discredited by all this polarization and stuff. But that's an opportunity.
Yes.
State.
Yeah. And I love it. And I want to end on that, Jim. So I think regardless, check out Jim's book. You can find it on Amazon. We'll have the link in the show notes. The Secret of Directional Investing, Making Money Amidst the Red Blue Rumble. And the point that we've been talking about the whole show is that whether you fall on the red side or fall on the blue side, you can look at the opportunities that are out there created by the dynamics that are occurring. And this book is going to help you determine what some of those trends are and make money on it. Jim, thank you so much for sharing your expertise and coming on the show today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Hey, Chris here again. I hope you found this episode valuable. Now, I have one more thing to gift you. We have a page for my coaching clients where you can get a free copy of my book, as well as much more from previous guests on the show. Just check out nextlevelincome.com/coaching to get a free copy of my book, audiobook, and much more. I'll send you a copy of my book and cover all the shipping costs as a thank you for listening to the podcast. Also, please like, share, and take just 90 seconds to give us a rating on Apple Podcasts.